The billionaire CEO was on his knees, scrubbing floors, and nobody knew who he really was. Ethan Cross owned the building, the company, everything. But dressed in a janitor's uniform, mopping hallways at dawn, he was invisible. Until the morning, an exhausted young mother dropped to her knees in front of him, spilling crayons and tears across the marble floor. That's when everything changed. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The fluorescent lights in the lobby of Cross Industries buzzed with that particular frequency that gets under your skin if you listen long enough. Ethan had never noticed it before. Then again, he'd never spent dawn mornings mopping this floor before either. He pushed the industrial mop across the marble in long, steady strokes, feeling the pull in his shoulders. The water in the bucket had gone from clear to gray an hour ago. His back ached. His hands, usually signing million-dollar contracts, were developing blisters. "You missed a spot, new guy." Ethan looked up. Jerry, the night security guard, pointed at a scuff mark near the elevator bank. "Got it," Ethan said, keeping his voice flat, unremarkable. Jerry wandered back to his desk, already forgetting the interaction. That was the point. In the past 3 days, Ethan had perfected the art of being nobody. Eli Morse, the maintenance temp. Background noise. A body in a uniform pushing a mop. It was 4:40 in the morning. In 2 hours, the first wave of employees would flood through those glass doors, clutching coffee cups and staring at phones. Middle managers, accountants. The people who actually made Cross Industries run while Ethan sat 30 floors up in an office with a view of the entire city. An office he hadn't seen in 3 days. The employee surveys had landed on his desk 2 weeks ago. His head of HR, Patricia Wong, had placed them there with the careful neutrality of someone delivering bad news to a man who could fire her with a word. "These are concerning," she'd said. Concerning. Corporate speak for devastating. The numbers told a clear story. Morale was in the basement. Trust in leadership was somewhere beneath that, maybe in the sewers. Comment sections were brutal. Management doesn't care if we live or die. They wouldn't recognize us if we passed them in the hall. We're just numbers on a spreadsheet. Ethan had built Cross Industries from nothing. 15 years of brutal hours, smart risks, and single-minded focus. He'd survived the death of his wife 3 years ago, raising his daughter Emma alone while keeping the company growing. He thought he'd done everything right. The surveys suggested otherwise. So here he was, mopping floors, emptying trash cans, and trying to understand where he'd gone so catastrophically wrong. The water in his bucket sloshed as he moved it closer to the elevator bank. The building was silent except for the hum of climate control and Jerry's radio playing classic rock at low volume. This was the version of Cross Industries nobody else saw. The after-hours skeleton crew. The people who kept things running while everyone else was home sleeping. Ethan had met all of them now. Rita, who cleaned the executive suites and had worked here for 12 years. Marcus, who handled trash collection and was studying for his GED at night. Samir, who buffed the floors on the lower levels and sent money back to his family in Bangladesh. They all knew each other's names, shared cigarettes during breaks, covered shifts when someone's kid got sick. Nobody on the executive floor could name their own assistants half the time. The elevator dinged. Ethan glanced up, frowning. It was too early for anyone to be arriving. The car descended from one of the upper floors, probably someone working late, finally heading home. The doors slid open. Martin Cole stepped out, suit jacket slung over one arm, tie loosened. He looked like he'd been up all night, which he probably had. Martin was senior director of finance, the kind of ambitious corporate climber who treated the office like a battlefield and everyone around him like enemy combatants. He walked past Ethan without a glance. "Floor's wet," Ethan said. Martin kept walking, expensive shoes clicking across the marble. He pushed through the front doors and disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. Ethan watched him go, jaw tight. He'd worked with Martin for 6 years. They'd had lunch together dozens of times, discussed strategy, reviewed quarterly reports, even attended Emma's school fundraiser together once. Martin had just walked past him like he was furniture. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so depressing. Ethan went back to mopping. The sun was coming up when Sofia Reyes hit the snooze button for the 3rd time. She shouldn't have. She knew she shouldn't have. But her body felt like lead, and her brain was wrapped in cotton, and the idea of getting up, getting dressed, getting Mateo ready, dropping him at school, and making it across the city to be at her desk by 8 seemed physically impossible. The alarm screamed again. Sophia forced her eyes open. The ceiling of her apartment had a water stain shaped like Texas. She'd been staring at it for 9 months since she and Mateo moved into this place. 1 bedroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, and rent that ate 70% of her paycheck. She sat up. Her back protested. She'd slept wrong again, probably because the mattress was garbage and she couldn't afford a new one. "Mateo," she called. "Baby, time to get up." No response. Sophia pushed herself out of bed, her feet hitting the cold floor. She'd lived in better places. Much better places. Before Diego left. Before the bills started piling up. Before she realized that being a single mother in this city meant working twice as hard for half as much. She padded to the doorway of Mateo's room. He was curled up under his blankets, clutching the stuffed bear that used to be white, but had long since faded to gray. "Maddie, come on, sweetheart. School day." He groaned and buried his face deeper into the pillow. Sophia understood the feeling. She moved through the morning routine on autopilot. Cereal for Mateo, toast for herself, because that's all they had. His lunch was already packed. Peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, the cookies that were on sale last week. Her own lunch was the same sandwich, no apple. Mateo dragged himself to the table, still half asleep. He was 6 years old, small for his age, with Diego's dark eyes and her stubborn chin. "I don't want to go to school," he mumbled. "I know, baby." "My stomach hurts." Sophia pressed the back of her hand to his forehead. No fever. He'd been saying his stomach hurt for 2 weeks now. She knew what it was. Anxiety. He was 6 and already developing anxiety because he could feel how stressed she was, how tight money was, how scared she was every single day. "You'll feel better once you're there," she said, trying to sound confident. "Mrs. Palmer said you did great on your math worksheet yesterday." Mateo picked at his cereal. Sophia glanced at the clock. 7:15. If they left in the next 10 minutes, she could drop him off and still make it to work on time. Maybe. She was already on thin ice at Cross Industries. She'd been there 5 weeks. 5 weeks of Martin Cole criticizing everything she did, questioning every decision, making comments about her situation in front of the whole department. Some people aren't cut out for professional environments. That's what he'd said last week when she'd asked to leave early because Mateo's school called about a fever. Sophia had wanted to throw her stapler at his head. Instead, she'd smiled tightly and stayed until 6, arranging for her neighbor to pick Mateo up, paying her $40 they couldn't afford. "Mom, I can't find my backpack." Sophia closed her eyes, counted to 3, opened them again. "Where did you leave it?" "I don't know." Of course he didn't know. They found it eventually, wedged behind the couch along with 2 toy cars and a library book that was 3 weeks overdue. Sophia shoved Mateo's homework folder inside, added the lunch bag, zipped it up. 7:28. "Shoes, now!" Mateo moved like he was underwater. Sophia grabbed her own bag, a worn leather tote that used to belong to her mother, and did a mental inventory. Wallet, keys, phone, the makeup she'd apply on the train because there wasn't time to do it here, the cardigan that hid the fact that she only owned 3 work-appropriate tops, and this was the 3rd day in a row for this one. 7:34. They were going to be late. "Come on, baby, we have to move." She ushered Mateo toward the door, juggling her bag, his backpack, her coffee in a travel mug that didn't quite seal right. She could feel the panic rising. Late meant questions. Questions meant Martin, looking at her with that expression that said he was just waiting for an excuse. They made it to the train with 30 seconds to spare. The car was packed. Morning rush, everyone pressed together, avoiding eye contact. Sophia held Mateo close, his backpack clutched in her other hand because there wasn't room to put it down. The train lurched forward. Sophia's coffee sloshed. She tightened her grip on the mug, on Mateo, on the last threads of composure. They had to transfer twice. By the time they reached Mateo's school, it was 8:07. The bell had already rung. The playground was empty. "I'm late," Mateo said quietly. "It's okay. I'll walk you in." Sophia signed him in at the office, ignoring the receptionist's pointed look. Late again. She could feel the judgment radiating off the woman like heat. She knelt down, straightening Mateo's collar. "You're going to have a great day," she said. He nodded, not believing her. I love you so much. Love you too, Mom. She watched him walk down the hallway toward his classroom, backpack bouncing with each step. So small, so brave. Sophia blinked back the burning in her eyes and headed for the train. By the time she reached Cross Industries, it was 8:40. She was very, extremely late. Sophia pushed through the revolving doors, out of breath, her heart hammering. The lobby was busy with morning traffic. People in suits, people with briefcases, people who'd probably been at their desks since 7:30. She headed for the elevator bank, moving fast. Too fast. The strap of Mateo's backpack, still clutched in her hand because she'd meant to drop it at her desk before anyone noticed, caught on her tote bag. She tried to untangle them while walking, while not dropping her coffee, while pressing the elevator call button. The backpack zipper, already half open, gave way completely. Crayons exploded across the floor. Toy cars scattered. The stuffed bear tumbled out and landed face down on the polished marble. No, no, no! Sophia dropped to her knees, trying to grab everything at once. A green crayon rolled under someone's shoe. A red one skittered toward the information desk. People walked around her, stepping over crayons, not stopping. Her throat tightened, her eyes burned. She was on her knees in the lobby of her workplace, 40 minutes late, surrounded by her son's toys while everyone walked past like she didn't exist. Hey, it's okay. Sophia looked up. A man in a maintenance uniform knelt beside her. Maybe mid-30s, dark hair slightly too long, a few days of stubble on his jaw. He had the kind of face that could have been handsome if it wasn't so tired. He picked up the stuffed bear, brushed it off, and handed it to her. Rough morning? He asked. Sophia let out a shaky laugh that was almost a sob. Something like that. He started gathering crayons, moving efficiently, not making a big deal out of it, not looking at her like she was pathetic. I've been there, he said. My daughter once spilled an entire box of cereal in the grocery store, aisle 3, during the Saturday rush. Sophia grabbed the toy cars, shoving them back into the backpack. Her hands were shaking. I'm so late, she said. I'm already on probation, and This is so stupid. I shouldn't have brought his backpack. I just forgot to take it out of my bag this morning, and... Breathe, the man said. She stopped, looked at him. He gave her a small, understanding smile. Seriously, breathe. 1 second. Sophia inhaled, exhaled. Her heart was still racing, but the sharp edge of panic dulled slightly. They collected the rest of the crayons in silence. When everything was back in the backpack, the man stood and offered her a hand. She took it. His grip was firm, steady. Thank you, Sophia said. Really, Thank you. Don't worry about it. He glanced toward the elevator. What floor? 12. He nodded. Finance department, Martin Cole's territory. Sophia blinked. You know Martin? Something flickered across his face. I know of him. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Sophia stepped inside, clutching the backpack and her bag and what was left of her dignity. The maintenance worker, she should have asked his name, gave her a 2-finger wave as the doors closed. Good luck, he said. The elevator rose. Sophia leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. She was 43 minutes late. Martin was going to destroy her. Ethan watched the elevator climb, numbers ticking upward on the display. 12. Finance. Which meant that exhausted, overwhelmed woman was about to walk into Martin Cole's war zone. He felt something tighten in his chest. Anger, maybe. Or recognition. He'd seen that look on her face. The look of someone drowning, trying desperately to keep their head above water while the current pulled them down. He'd worn that look himself 3 years ago, in the months after Caroline died. Ethan picked up his mop. The lobby floor was scattered with a few stray crayons he'd missed. He collected them, dropping them in his utility cart. A stuffed bear, toy cars, crayons. She had a kid. Single mother, probably, given the way she'd talked about the morning. Working in finance, which meant she was educated, capable. And she was on probation, which meant Martin was gunning for her. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd been watching Martin for 3 days now, watching the way he spoke to people, the way he dressed down junior staff in front of others, the way he took credit for their work and deflected blame when things went wrong. Ethan had promoted Martin 6 years ago, given him authority, trusted him. That was looking like a mistake. The elevator dinged again. More employees poured out, scattering across the lobby. The morning rush was in full swing now. Ethan blended back into the background, just another maintenance worker pushing a cart. Nobody looked at him twice. By 9:30, the lobby had quieted. Ethan finished the floors, emptied the trash bins near the security desk, and headed for the service elevator. His shift was technically over at 10, but he'd learned that was when the real work started. The work nobody saw. He rode the elevator to the 12th floor. The finance department occupied the entire level. Rows of cubicles, a handful of offices along the windows, and a break room that smelled like burned coffee and disappointment. Ethan pushed his cart down the hallway, emptying trash cans, wiping down surfaces. The morning meeting was underway in the main conference room. Through the glass wall, he could see Martin standing at the head of the table, presenting something on the screen. And there, 3 seats down, was the woman from the lobby. She'd changed into a cardigan, trying to look more professional, probably. Her hair was pulled back. She was taking notes, her pen moving quickly across a legal pad. Martin said something, and she looked up. Ethan couldn't hear the words, but he could read the body language. Martin was smiling. The kind of smile that had teeth. The woman's expression went carefully blank. Ethan moved on, pushing the cart toward the break room. He was emptying the trash when someone came in. "Hey, you're the new guy, right?" Ethan turned. A woman in her 50s, gray hair cut short, holding an empty coffee mug. "Yeah, Eli. I'm Janet. Accounting." She refilled her mug from the pot, which looked like it had been sitting there since yesterday. "You settling in okay?" "Getting there." Janet leaned against the counter, studying him. "You seem different from the usual temps they send." Ethan kept his expression neutral. "How so?" "I don't know. You actually look at people when they talk to you." He shrugged. "Seemed polite." Janet smiled. "Polite isn't common around here." She sipped her coffee, made a face. "Fair warning, Martin's in a mood today. One of the junior accountants was late, and he's making her life hell." Ethan's hand stilled on the trash bag. "The woman with the dark hair?" "Sophia, yeah, she's new. Sweet kid, works hard, but—" Janet shook her head. "Martin's decided he doesn't like her. Once he makes that decision, it's over." "Why doesn't she report him?" Janet laughed, but there was no humor in it. "To who? HR. They don't care. And even if they did, Martin's untouchable. He brings in too much revenue." Ethan tied off the trash bag, his movements deliberate. "Nobody's untouchable." "You'd think." Janet pushed off the counter. "Anyway, welcome to 12. Keep your head down and you'll be fine." She left. Ethan stood in the break room holding a bag of garbage, thinking about the woman, Sophia, sitting in that conference room while Martin smiled his predator smile. Nobody's untouchable. He'd meant it. The meeting ended just after 10. Sophia gathered her notes, her hands still shaking slightly. Martin had spent 15 minutes breaking down her analysis of last quarter's expenditures, pointing out every tiny flaw, making sure everyone in the room knew she'd missed a decimal point in one projection. Never mind that the overall analysis was solid, never mind that she'd stayed until 8 last night making sure it was perfect. 1 decimal point. That's all it took. "Sophia, a word." She looked up. Martin stood by the door waiting. Everyone else filed out, avoiding eye contact. Nobody wanted to be associated with the person Martin was currently destroying. Sophia walked to the front of the room. Martin closed the door. "That was embarrassing," he said. Sophia kept her voice level. "I apologize for the error. It won't happen again." "You also arrived 43 minutes late this morning." "I had a situation with my son's school." "I don't care about your situation." Martin's voice was flat. "You're here to do a job. If you can't manage your personal life well enough to show up on time and produce accurate work, maybe you're not the right fit." Sophia felt something crack inside her chest. She'd worked so hard. So impossibly hard. Studied for years while raising Mateo alone. Fought for this position, this chance. And she was good at it. She knew she was good at it. But Martin didn't care. "I understand," she said quietly. "Do you?" "Because I'm not convinced. This is your second warning. 1 more and we're done." 2 warnings. She'd only known about 1. Sophia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Martin opened the door. "Get back to work." She walked past him, back to her cubicle. Her eyes were burning again, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not where anyone could see. She sat down at her desk and stared at her computer screen. The morning had started badly. It was getting worse, and she had no idea how to make it stop. Ethan watched the exchange through the break room window. He couldn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. Martin's body language said everything. The way he stood too close. The way he smiled while delivering what was clearly a threat. Sophia had walked back to her desk like someone had just punched her in the stomach. Ethan felt fury rising in his throat, hot and sharp. He'd built this company to be better than this. Better than the corporate hellscapes he'd worked in during his 20s, where people were expendable and cruelty was considered leadership. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost control of it. Or maybe he'd never had control. Maybe he'd just been sitting in his office 30 floors up, signing papers, while people like Martin turned the place into exactly what he'd sworn it wouldn't be. Ethan finished emptying the break room trash and pushed his cart back toward the service elevator. He had 4 hours left on his shift. 4 hours to observe, to listen, to understand how deep the rot went. But his mind kept going back to Sophia, to the way she'd looked in the lobby, on her knees, trying to hold everything together, to the way she'd looked just now, walking back to her desk with her shoulders hunched like she was bracing for the next blow. The elevator doors opened. Ethan stepped inside, pulling the cart with him. He'd come here to understand the disconnect between management and workers, to figure out where the company had gone wrong. He was starting to get the picture, and he didn't like it at all. That lunchtime hit at noon. The 12th floor cleared out as people headed to the cafeteria or the sandwich shop across the street. Sophia stayed at her desk. She'd learned quickly that leaving meant running into Martin, which meant more opportunities for him to find fault. Besides, she couldn't afford the cafeteria. The sandwich in her bag would have to be enough. She was halfway through it when someone knocked on her cubicle wall. Sophia looked up. The maintenance worker from this morning stood there, holding a coffee cup. "Hey," he said. "Thought you might need this." Sophia blinked at him. What?" He held out the cup. "Coffee. From the good place down the street, not the break room sludge." "I can't. It's already paid for, and if you don't take it, I'm just going to throw it away, which seems wasteful." Sophia hesitated, then took the cup. It was warm. The smell of real, actual good coffee hit her, and her eyes almost watered. "Thank you," she said. "You really didn't have to. Figured your morning was rough enough." He leaned against the cubicle wall. "I'm Eli, by the way." "Sophia." "Nice to officially meet you, Sophia." He glanced around the empty office. "Not eating with the others." She looked down at her sandwich. "Trying to catch up on work. Or avoiding someone?" Sophia's head snapped up. Eli's expression was knowing. "I've worked here long enough to recognize the pattern. Someone's making your life difficult." She didn't answer, couldn't answer. If she started talking about Martin, she might not stop, and then she'd be crying in her cubicle to a maintenance worker she barely knew. "You don't have to tell me," Eli said, "but for what it's worth, I've seen you working. You're good at what you do. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Sophia stared at him. "How would you know if I'm good at this?" "I pay attention." He pushed off the wall. "Anyway, enjoy the coffee, and if you need anything, trash emptied, spill cleaned up, whatever, I'm around." He walked away before she could respond. Sophia sat there, holding the coffee, feeling something strange and unfamiliar. Someone had been kind to her. Not because they wanted something, not because they pitied her, just because. She took a sip. The coffee was perfect. For the first time all day, she smiled. The afternoon crawled by. Ethan finished his shift at 2 and changed back into his suit in the private bathroom on the 30th floor. He had a meeting with the board at 3. Patricia wanted to discuss the Q3 projections. There were a dozen things demanding his attention, but his mind was still on the 12th floor, on Sophia, working through lunch in an empty office, on Martin, wielding his authority like a weapon, on the fact that this was happening in his company, under his name, and he'd had no idea. He thought about the surveys, the comments. Management doesn't care if we live or die. Maybe they were right. Ethan straightened his tie, looking at himself in the mirror. He barely recognized the man staring back. 3 days ago, he'd been Ethan Cross, CEO, confident, in control. Certain he was doing the right thing. Now he was Eli, the maintenance worker who'd seen behind the curtain and didn't like what he found. And he was someone else too. Someone he hadn't been in a long time. a man who gave a damn. His phone buzzed, Patricia reminding him about the meeting. Ethan pocketed the phone and headed for the elevator. He had work to do. But the undercover experiment wasn't over, not by a long shot. In fact, it was just beginning. The board meeting ran long, as they always did. Ethan sat at the head of the table, half listening to the CFO drone on about market volatility, while his mind kept drifting back to the 12th floor. To Sophia's face when Martin had closed that conference room door. To the way her hands had shaken while picking up crayons. "Ethan, your thoughts?" He blinked. Patricia was looking at him expectantly. So was everyone else around the table. "Sorry, what was the question?" Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly. In 6 years of working together, he'd never lost focus during a board meeting. "The Singapore expansion," she said carefully. "Do we move forward or table it until Q4? Ethan glanced at the projections on the screen. Numbers he should care about. Numbers that used to be the only thing he cared about. "Move forward," he said, "but I want a full audit of our internal operations first. Every department. Pay particular attention to management practices and employee satisfaction metrics." The room went quiet. "That's quite comprehensive," Patricia said. "May I ask what's prompting this?" "The surveys we discussed last week. I want to know if those issues are isolated or systemic." Ethan stood, gathering his papers. "I also want updated retention data. How many people are we losing? Which departments have the highest turnover? And I want exit interview transcripts from the last 12 months. That's going to take time to compile, then start now." He checked his watch. 4:30. Emma's school let out at 3:15, which meant his nanny had already picked her up. "Send me preliminary findings by end of week. We'll reconvene Monday." He left before anyone could object. The executive elevator descended in smooth silence. Ethan watched the numbers tick down, thinking about the service elevator he'd been riding for the past 3 days. The one that rattled and groaned and smelled like cleaning solution. The one where people actually talked to each other. The doors opened on the parking garage. Ethan's car was waiting where he'd left it that morning. A black Mercedes that cost more than most people made in a year. He'd driven it to work exactly twice since starting the undercover experiment. The other days, he'd taken the train, the same train Sophia took. He unlocked the car but didn't get in. Instead, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found Martin Cole's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. What would he even say? Stop being cruel to your staff? I've been watching you and you're everything wrong with this company? Ethan put the phone away. Not yet. He didn't have the full picture yet. But he was getting there. He drove home through rush hour traffic, his mind still circling the same thoughts. By the time he pulled into his driveway, the sun was setting behind the trees that bordered his property. 3 acres in the suburbs, a house with more rooms than he and Emma could ever use, a mortgage he'd paid off 5 years ago, the life he'd built after Caroline died, the life that was supposed to mean he'd made it. "Daddy!" Emma came running down the front steps as soon as he got out of the car. 7 years old, all knees and elbows and energy. She had Caroline's blonde hair and his gray eyes, and absolutely no sense of caution. "Whoa, careful on those steps," Ethan said, catching her as she launched herself at him. "Mrs. Chen made cookies, and she let me have 3, and I finished my math homework, and can we go to the park tomorrow?" Ethan carried her toward the house, listening to her chatter. This was the best part of his day, the only part that felt real anymore. Mrs. Chen, his nanny, met them at the door. "She's had dinner. Bath is ready whenever you are. And you got a package. I left it on your desk." "Thanks, Linda. See you tomorrow." Mrs. Chen gathered her things and left. Ethan set Emma down in the entryway, and she immediately started telling him about some drama involving her friend Madison and someone named Tyler who apparently ate glue. "He ate the whole bottle," Emma said, eyes wide. "Mrs. Palmer had to call his mom." "That sounds like a rough day for Tyler." "It was gross, Daddy." Ethan smiled despite himself. "I bet. Come on, let's get you in the bath before the water gets cold." The evening routine was familiar, comfortable. Bath time, pajamas, a story. Emma picked the same book she'd been picking for 2 weeks, some story about a girl who trained dragons. Ethan read it with the same voices he always did, the dragon deep and growly, the girl high and brave. By the time he finished, Emma was yawning. "One more chapter?" she asked sleepily. "Nice try, bedtime." But Daddy, bedtime. She grumbled but didn't really argue. Ethan tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and turned off the light. Daddy? Her voice was small in the darkness. Yeah, sweetheart? Do you like your job? The question caught him off guard. Why do you ask? You seem sad lately, like how you were after Mommy. Ethan's chest tightened. He sat back down on the edge of her bed. I'm not sad, Em, just thinking about some stuff at work. What stuff? How did he explain this to a 7-year-old? How did he tell her that he was starting to realize he'd built something that hurt people? That he'd been so focused on success he'd forgotten to check if the success was worth having? Just trying to make sure I'm doing the right thing, he said finally. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, Mommy used to say the right thing is usually the hard thing. Ethan felt something crack behind his ribs. Caroline had said that all the time, especially near the end when she was sick and the treatments weren't working and they both knew how this would end. She was right, Ethan said quietly. So you'll do the hard thing? Yeah, baby, I will. Emma smiled and rolled over, already half asleep. Ethan sat there for a few more minutes, watching her breathe. Then he stood, pulled the door mostly closed, and went downstairs to his office. The package Linda had mentioned was sitting on his desk. He opened it absently, his mind elsewhere. Inside was the employee badge he'd ordered, a temporary maintenance worker ID with his photo and the name Eli Morse. He set it on the desk and stared at it. Tomorrow he'd go back. Back to the service elevator and the mop bucket and the 12th floor where Sophia was probably still terrified of losing her job. Back to being invisible. But maybe, he thought, that was exactly where he needed to be. The next morning, Ethan was back in the janitor's uniform by 5 a.m. He'd gotten maybe 4 hours of sleep, his brain refusing to shut off. He kept thinking about Emma's question, about Caroline's voice in his head. The right thing is usually the hard thing. The building was quiet when he arrived. Jerry was at the security desk, half asleep with a crossword puzzle. Morning, Eli? Morning. Ethan clocked in and grabbed his cart. The routine was becoming familiar now. Floors first, then trash, then the break rooms on each level. He worked methodically, letting the physical labor quiet his racing thoughts. By 7, the building was starting to wake up. Early arrivals trickled through the lobby. Ethan recognized some of them now. The woman from legal who always got coffee from the cart outside. The IT guy who listened to podcasts on his commute and forgot to take his earbuds out. The marketing director who looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. At 7:40, Sophia came through the doors. She looked better than yesterday. Still tired, still carrying too much, but there was something different in the way she held herself. A little straighter, a little less defeated. She saw him mopping near the elevator bank and smiled. Actually smiled. Morning, Eli. Morning. Better day so far? Ask me after the 10 o'clock meeting. She shifted her bags. Thanks again for the coffee yesterday. You really didn't have to do that. Seemed like you needed it. The elevator dinged. Sophia stepped inside, then hesitated. Are you on lunch break around noon? She asked. Ethan blinked. Usually, yeah. Why? I don't really know anyone here yet, and eating alone in my cubicle is getting depressing, so if you wanted to, maybe we could… She trailed off, suddenly looking uncertain. Never mind, that's weird. You probably have friends. Noon works, Ethan said. Sophia's face lit up. Yeah? Okay, great. I'll meet you in the lobby? Sounds good. The elevator doors closed. Ethan stood there, mop in hand, wondering what the hell he was doing. Having lunch with an employee he was supposed to be observing from a distance wasn't part of the plan. Getting personally involved definitely wasn't part of the plan. But the plan had already gone sideways the moment he'd helped her pick up those crayons. At noon, Sophia found him in the lobby carrying a brown paper bag and looking nervous. I brought extra, she said, holding up the bag. I mean, I wasn't sure if you brought lunch, and I made too much anyway, so… They ended up outside, sitting on the concrete bench near the building's entrance. It was one of those perfect early fall days, the air crisp and the sky absurdly blue. Sophia opened the bag and pulled out 2 sandwiches wrapped in plastic wrap. Peanut butter and jelly, she said apologetically. It's not fancy, but it's perfect, Ethan said, taking the sandwich she offered. They ate in comfortable silence for a minute. Around them, the lunch rush was building, people in suits talking on phones, delivery drivers unloading packages, the city in constant motion. "So," Sophia said finally, "how long have you worked here?" "Not long, few weeks." The lie came easily now, too easily. "Do you like it?" Ethan considered the question. Did he like being a janitor? No. Did he like what he was learning? That was more complicated. "It's honest work," he said. "Nobody bothers me. I show up, do the job, go home." Sophia nodded. "That sounds nice, actually. Peaceful. What about you? You said you're new." 5 weeks. I'm a junior accountant, or trying to be anyway." She picked at her sandwich. "My boss doesn't seem to think I'm cut out for it." "Martin Cole?" Her head snapped up. "How did you—" "Word gets around. The maintenance staff hears things." Sophia's expression went carefully neutral. "What do you hear?" "That he's hard to work for, that he goes through junior staff like tissues." "That's accurate." She took a breath. "I'm his 4th hire this year. The other 3 all quit within 2 months." "Why'd you take the job if you knew that?" Sophia was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Because I needed it. Because I have a 6-year-old son and rent due and student loans and no one else was hiring. Because sometimes you don't get to choose the good options. You just take what's available and try not to drown." Ethan felt something twist in his gut. She was right. That's exactly what people did. They took what was available. And companies like his, like the one he'd built, relied on that desperation. "Your son," he said, "the one with the crayons." Sophia smiled, and it transformed her whole face. "Mateo? He's 6, smart as hell and stubborn as a mule, drives me crazy and makes everything worth it at the same time." "I get that. My daughter's 7, same deal." "You have a daughter?" "Emma. She's the best thing in my life." Sophia studied him. "You're a single dad?" "My wife died 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Thanks." Ethan took a bite of sandwich to avoid having to say more. Talking about Caroline always felt like walking on broken glass, even after 3 years. "Mateo's father isn't in the picture," Sophia offered quietly. "He left when Mateo was 2. Decided fatherhood wasn't for him." "His loss?" "That's what I tell myself. Chates." She finished her sandwich and crumpled the plastic wrap. "Some days I believe it." They sat there, 2 single parents on a concrete bench, sharing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the middle of a Wednesday. "Thank you for this," Sophia said. "I know it's weird, having lunch with the janitor." "Hey, I'm having lunch with an accountant. Equally weird from where I'm sitting." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Fair point." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression changed. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "Mateo's school. He's in the nurse's office. Says his stomach hurts." She stood up, already gathering her things. Martin's going to kill me, but I have to go get him." "Go," Ethan said. "Your kid needs you." "I'll probably get fired." "Then he's an even bigger asshole than I thought." Sophia looked at him, something like gratitude in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'll see you. I don't know when I'll see you." She hurried back inside. Ethan sat there, still holding half a sandwich, watching her disappear through the revolving doors. Then he pulled out his phone and texted Patricia. "Need full personnel file on Martin Cole. Also any complaints filed against him. ASAP." The response came back in under a minute. "Is this related to the audit?" "Yes. Send it to my personal email." He stood up, threw away the sandwich wrappers, and headed back inside. His shift didn't end for another 2 hours, but he was done pretending to mop floors for the day. Time to see exactly what Martin Cole had been getting away with. The files arrived that evening while Ethan was helping Emma with her homework. His laptop pinged with the email notification. He waited until Emma was in bed before opening it. What he found made his blood run cold. Martin Cole had been with Cross Industries for 8 years. In that time, he'd had 17 direct reports. 12 had resigned. Of those 12, 9 had filed complaints with HR before leaving. Hostile work environment, verbal abuse, discrimination, retaliation. Every single complaint had been noted, documented, and then quietly dismissed. Because Martin brought in revenue. Because he made the numbers work. Because in the corporate calculus, profit outweighed people every single time. Ethan read through the files until midnight. Then he read them again. One name kept appearing: Janet Morrison, the woman from accounting who'd warned him about Martin on his first day on the 12th floor. She'd filed 3 complaints over the years, all dismissed. The most recent was from 4 months ago. Subject line: hostile work environment, urgent intervention needed. The complaint detailed systematic harassment of junior staff, public humiliation, impossible deadlines, taking credit for others' work, creating a culture of fear. HR's response: issue discussed with Mr. Cole. He has been advised to moderate his management style. No further action warranted at this time. Ethan closed the laptop and pressed his palms against his eyes. This was his company, his responsibility, his failure. He'd been so focused on growth, on success, on building something that would last, that he'd created exactly the kind of toxic environment he'd sworn to avoid. And people like Sophia were paying the price. The next morning, Ethan didn't put on the janitor uniform. He put on a suit, went to the office early, called an emergency meeting with HER. Patricia was already there when he arrived, looking concerned. "What's this about?" she asked. "Martin Cole." "Ethan, if this is about those old complaints," Ethan said quietly, "are current. They're ongoing, and we've been ignoring them. We followed protocol. Protocol is failing." He dropped the files on the conference table. 17 reports, 12 resignations, 9 formal complaints, and we did nothing. Patricia picked up the files, scanning them. "Martin generates significant revenue. I don't care if he's generating the GDP of a small country. He's creating a hostile work environment, and we're enabling it. So what do you want to do? Fire him? That'll cost us millions." Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her. Patricia had been with him since the beginning. She was good at her job, but somewhere along the line they'd both lost sight of what actually mattered. "What'll it cost us if we don't?" he asked quietly. Patricia didn't have an answer. "I want a full investigation," Ethan said. "Talk to his current staff. Talk to the people who resigned. Document everything, and I want it done quietly. If he gets wind of this and retaliates, we'll have a lawsuit that'll make the revenue loss look like pocket change. This is going to take time. Then we start now." Patricia gathered the files. "You're sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything." After she left, Ethan sat in his office and stared out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Sophia was probably getting Matteo ready for school, probably stressed about being late again, probably terrified of what Martin would say. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to Patricia. "Also need you to do something else. Sophia Reyes, junior accountant, finance department. I want her transferred to a different team. Effective immediately. Make it seem like a lateral move, not a demotion or promotion. Just get her away from Martin." The response came back quickly. "Any particular reason?" Ethan hesitated, then typed, "She's a good employee in a bad situation. Fix it." He put the phone down and went back to being Ethan Cross, CEO. But part of him was still Eli, the janitor who'd seen what it was really like down in the trenches, and that part wasn't going to forget. Sophia got the transfer notification that afternoon. She stared at the email on her screen, reading it 3 times to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. "Effective Monday, you will be transitioning to the analytics team under Director Sarah Chen. This lateral move reflects our commitment to employee development and optimal team placement." She wasn't fired. She was being moved, away from Martin. Sophia sat back in her chair, her hands shaking. She wanted to cry, or laugh, or maybe both. "Everything okay?" She looked up. Janet was standing by her cubicle, holding a coffee mug. "I got transferred," Sophia said numbly. Janet's eyebrows rose. "By choice, or I don't know. The email just says it's a lateral move, starting Monday. Sarah Chen's team. That's good, really good. She's tough, but fair. Actually develops her people instead of eating them alive." Janet smiled. "Congratulations." After Janet left, Sophia read the email again. Then she grabbed her phone and did something she hadn't done in weeks. She called her mother. "Mija, is everything okay?" "Yeah, Mama. I think everything might actually be okay." That evening, when Sophia picked up Matteo from after-school care, she was smiling, really smiling. Matteo noticed immediately. "You look happy, Mama." "I am, baby. I really am." Did something good happen? Yeah, something really good happened. They stopped for ice cream on the way home, even though it wasn't in the budget. Chocolate for Mateo, vanilla for her. They ate it sitting on the steps outside their apartment building, watching the sunset between the buildings. Mama? Mateo licked his cone. Do you think things are getting better? Sophia looked at her son, her beautiful, brave, too smart for his own good son, and felt something loosen in her chest. Yeah, Maddie, I think they are. She had no idea how this had happened, who had intervened, why she'd been chosen for this mercy. But for the first time in months, she felt like maybe she could breathe. The next day, Ethan was back in the janitor uniform, back to being Eli, pushing a mop cart through the building. He saw Sophia briefly in the morning. She was practically glowing. Did you hear? She said, stopping him by the elevator. I got transferred. I'm moving to a different team Monday. That's great, Ethan said, meaning it. I don't know how it happened. I didn't apply for anything. It just happened. Sometimes things work out. Sophia shook her head, smiling. I don't believe in coincidences. Someone helped me. I just wish I knew who, so I could thank them. The elevator dinged. She stepped inside, still smiling. See you at lunch? She asked. Yeah, see you at lunch. The doors closed. Ethan stood there, feeling the weight of what he'd done. It was a small thing. One transfer, one employee moved to a better situation. But it mattered. It mattered so much. He went back to mopping floors, but his mind was already working on the bigger problem. Martin was still there, still in power, still making people miserable. And the investigation would take time, time that other people he didn't even know yet, didn't have. By the end of the week, Ethan had a plan. It wasn't a good plan. It would probably blow his cover. It might backfire spectacularly. But Emma's voice was in his head. You'll do the hard thing? Yeah, baby, he would. Friday afternoon, Ethan changed out of the janitor uniform early, put on his suit, went up to the 30th floor. Patricia was waiting with the preliminary investigation report. It's worse than we thought, she said, handing him the file. Current staff are terrified to talk on record, but off the record, it's damning. He's created a culture of fear. People are staying because they can't afford to lose their jobs, not because they want to be there. Ethan flipped through the report. Pages of testimony. Stories that made his skin crawl. What do you recommend, Val? He asked. Immediate termination. Severance package to avoid wrongful termination claims. Public statement about our commitment to workplace integrity. Do it. Monday morning. Patricia nodded. There's one more thing. Martin requested a meeting with you. Next week. Says he wants to discuss a promotion. Ethan almost laughed. Of course he does. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him I'll see him Monday, 9 a.m., my office. After Patricia left, Ethan sat at his desk and thought about what was coming. Martin would be blindsided, angry. He'd probably threaten legal action. He might make a scene. Let him. Some things were worth the mess. Ethan gathered his things and headed home. Emma was waiting with a picture she'd drawn, him and her and a dragon that looked suspiciously like the one from her favorite book. Do you like it, Daddy? I love it, sweetheart. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ethan sat in his office and wrote an email to the entire company. He deleted it 3 times before he got it right. Subject: Changes coming. Over the past few weeks, I've been conducting a review of our company culture and management practices. What I've found is unacceptable. We've allowed revenue to matter more than people. We've protected those who hurt others because they produced results. We've looked the other way when we should have intervened. That ends now. Starting Monday, there will be changes. Some will be immediate, some will take time. But I promise you this, Cross Industries will be a place where good work is rewarded, where people are treated with dignity, and where speaking up is encouraged, not punished. If you've experienced harassment, discrimination, or retaliation, I want to hear about it. My door is open. Literally, we're going to do better, because you deserve better. Ethan Cross. He scheduled it to send Monday morning at 8 a.m., 1 hour before Martin Cole's meeting. Then he closed his laptop and went to bed. The hard thing, he thought, was usually the right thing. Caroline had been right about that. She'd been right about a lot of things. And it was time he started listening. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel possible. Ethan dropped Emma at school early, watching her run toward her classroom with her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She turned at the door and waved. He waved back, then sat in the car for a minute, gathering himself. Today was going to be brutal. He checked his phone. 7:45. The email would go out in 15 minutes. Martin's meeting was at 9. Ethan started the car and headed toward Cross Industries. The parking garage was already filling up. Ethan took the executive elevator to the 30th floor, nodding at the few early arrivers he passed. In his office, Patricia was waiting with coffee and a grim expression. "You ready for this?" she asked. "No, but we're doing it anyway. Legal wants to be in the room when you terminate him." "Fine. Anyone else?" "I think it should just be us and counsel. Less chance of it turning into a circus." Ethan nodded. His computer screen showed 7:58, 2 minutes. "The email's going to cause a stir," Patricia said carefully. "Good. It should. People are going to have questions. Then we'll answer them." 7:59. Ethan watched the clock tick over to E8. Somewhere in the building, 500 employees were opening their email, reading his message, processing what it meant. His phone started buzzing almost immediately. He ignored it. At 8:15, there was a knock on his door. Claire from legal, looking nervous. "Mr. Cole is here," she said. "Early. He's asking to see you now." Of course he was. Martin had probably seen the email, probably realized what was coming. "Send him in," Ethan said. Patricia and Claire positioned themselves near the window. Ethan stayed behind his desk, standing. Martin walked in wearing a suit that cost at least $3,000 and an expression that could have cut glass. "What the hell is this?" He held up his phone, showing Ethan's email. "Have a seat, Martin." "I don't want to sit. I want to know what's going on. That email, you're making it sound like this company is some kind of hostile workplace. Do you have any idea what that'll do to our reputation?" "Sit down," Ethan said again, his voice harder this time. Martin finally seemed to notice Patricia and Claire. His eyes narrowed. "Why is legal here?" "Because this is a termination meeting. Your employment with Cross Industries ends today, effective immediately." The color drained from Martin's face. Then it came rushing back, red and furious. "You can't be serious. I'm one of your top performers. I've brought in millions. You've also created a hostile work environment. You've harassed junior staff. You've retaliated against people who spoke up. You've made this department a miserable place to work." Ethan kept his voice level, professional. "We have documentation, testimony, a pattern of behavior going back years. Those complaints were dismissed. They shouldn't have been. That's on me. I should have done this years ago." Martin's hands clenched into fists. "This is about that girl, isn't it? Sophia, what's her name? She complained to you. This has nothing to do with any individual employee. This is about your conduct, your pattern of abuse, your complete disregard for the people you're supposed to lead. She was incompetent. She's a talented accountant who you terrorized because you could." Ethan leaned forward. "I've read every complaint filed against you, Martin. Every single one. The junior analyst you made cry in front of the entire department, the assistant you fired because she took maternity leave, the man you blackballed in the industry because he reported you to HR. You want to talk about incompetence? Let's talk about your complete failure as a leader." Martin's face was scarlet now. "You self-righteous prick. You think you're better than me? You built this company on the same principles. Make the numbers, nothing else matters. I was doing exactly what you taught me to do." The words hit like a slap, because Martin wasn't entirely wrong. Ethan had built Cross Industries with a singular focus on growth, on revenue, on winning. He'd promoted people like Martin because they delivered results. He'd created the system that allowed this to happen. "You're right," Ethan said quietly. "I did teach you that. And I was wrong. Which is why this stops now. You're making a huge mistake. I'll sue. Wrongful termination, defamation. You can try." Claire stepped forward, handing Martin an envelope. "This is your severance package. 6 months' salary, benefits continuation, and a non-disparagement clause that goes both ways. Sign it, and we part ways cleanly. Refuse, and we'll litigate. I promise you, we have enough documentation to win." Martin snatched the envelope, his hands shaking with rage. "I want to talk to the board. The board has been briefed. They support this decision." That was a slight exaggeration. The board had been informed an hour ago via emergency email. Several members had already called Ethan's cell. He'd let them all go to voicemail. Martin stood there, breathing hard, looking like he wanted to flip the desk. "You're going to regret this," he said finally. "I regret not doing it sooner. That email you sent, you've opened a floodgate. Every disgruntled employee in this building is going to come crawling out with complaints. You'll drown in lawsuits. Then we'll deal with them, one at a time, fairly." Martin looked at each of them in turn, his expression venomous. Then he turned and walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. The silence that followed was deafening. "Well," Patricia said finally, "that went about as well as expected." Ethan sat down heavily in his chair. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the desk. "You okay?" Claire asked. "Yeah, I'm fine." He wasn't fine. Martin's words were still echoing in his head. "You built this company on the same principles." Patricia's phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then started ringing continuously. "That'll be the press," she said. "Someone leaked the email. It's already making the rounds on social media." Of course it was. Ethan pulled up Twitter on his computer. The email was everywhere. Screenshots, commentary, think pieces already being written about toxic corporate culture and billionaire CEOs who suddenly developed a conscience. Some of the responses were supportive. Many were skeptical. A few were downright hostile. Easy to send an email. Let's see if he actually changes anything. Performative nonsense. He's been in charge for 15 years and suddenly noticed his company is toxic. Too little, too late. Ethan closed the browser. They weren't wrong. "What do you need from me?" Claire asked. "Draft a statement for the press. Keep it simple. We're committed to creating a better workplace culture. Changes are underway. We take these issues seriously, the usual." And when they ask about Martin specifically, no comment on individual personnel matters. After Claire left, Patricia sat down across from Ethan. "The 12th floor is chaos right now," she said. "People saw Martin leave. They're putting two and two together." "Good. Let them." "Ethan, I mean it. I want people to know that behavior has consequences, even for top performers." Patricia studied him. "You've changed." "Have I?" 2 weeks ago, you would have found a way to quietly shuffle Martin to a different department, save face for everyone involved. You wouldn't have sent that email. You definitely wouldn't have made this public. Ethan thought about the janitor uniform hanging in his closet at home, about the 3 days he'd spent invisible, seeing what the company really looked like from the bottom up, about Sophia picking up crayons with shaking hands. 2 weeks ago, I didn't know better, he said. Now I do. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered anyway. "Mr. Cross? This is Diane Chen from the Wall Street Journal. I'm hoping to get a comment on the leaked internal memo regarding workplace culture at Cross Industries." Ethan hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. He let it ring. Patricia stood. "I should get back to HR. We're going to be flooded with requests. People wanting to talk, file complaints, ask questions. Handle it. And Patricia, I meant what I said in the email. My door is open. If someone wants to talk to me directly, make it happen." After she left, Ethan sat alone in his office, listening to his phone buzz with increasingly frantic messages. He'd meant to create change. He hadn't quite anticipated setting the entire company on fire. But maybe that's what it took. Maybe some things needed to burn before they could be rebuilt. On the 12th floor, Sophia was trying to pack up her cubicle while fielding questions from everyone who walked past. "Did you know," Janet asked for the third time, "about Martin getting fired?" "I didn't know anything," Sophia said honestly. "I got transferred Friday, that's all I knew. But the timing, right after you got moved, is a coincidence." Except Sophia didn't believe in coincidences, and she was starting to suspect that her transfer and Martin's termination were connected. She just couldn't figure out how. Her phone buzzed. The school. Again. Sophia's heart sank. She answered. "Miss Reyes, this is Nurse Wilson. Mateo's asking for you. He says his stomach hurts and he feels dizzy." Sophia closed her eyes. Her first day on the new team was supposed to be today. She was supposed to make a good impression. Show up early, stay late, prove she deserved to be there. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said. She hung up and grabbed her bag. Around her, the office buzzed with speculation and gossip. Nobody noticed her leaving. Sophia made it to the school in 20 minutes, her heart pounding the entire way. She found Mateo in the nurse's office, curled up on the cot with his arms wrapped around his stomach. "Hey, baby." She knelt beside him, pressing her hand to his forehead. "No fever." Again. "My stomach really hurts, Mama." "I know, sweetheart." Nurse Wilson stood nearby, looking sympathetic but concerned. "This is the 4th time this month," she said quietly. "Has he seen a doctor?" "We have an appointment next week." What she didn't say, it was at the free clinic across town, the one with a 3-month waiting list, the one where she'd begged for an earlier slot because she couldn't afford a regular pediatrician. "I think you should go home," Nurse Wilson said. "Rest, fluids, maybe some bland food." Sophia nodded and helped Matteo sit up. He leaned against her, small and warm and frightened. They took the bus home because Sophia didn't have money for a cab, and Matteo said the movement made his stomach feel worse. By the time they reached their apartment, he was crying quietly. "It's okay, baby. We're home now." She got him settled on the couch with a blanket and a glass of water. Then she sat on the floor beside him, stroking his hair, while he finally fell asleep. The apartment was quiet except for his breathing. Sophia pulled out her phone and looked at her work email. 3 messages from her new supervisor, Sarah Chen, asking where she was. 1 from HR about onboarding paperwork. She should respond, explain, something. But she was so tired. She leaned her head back against the couch and closed her eyes. This was her life. Trying to hold together a job and a child and an apartment with duct tape and prayer and whatever scraps of energy she had left at the end of each day. And every time she thought she might be getting ahead, something happened. Matteo got sick. A bill came due. The universe reminded her that she was one crisis away from losing everything. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello?" "Sophia, it's Eli, from maintenance." Sophia sat up straighter. "How did you get my number?" "Employee directory." "Sorry, is this weird?" "This is probably weird." "No, I'm just surprised. You weren't at lunch today. I wanted to make sure you were okay." Something warm unfurled in Sophia's chest. Someone had noticed. Someone had cared enough to check. "I'm okay. My son got sick at school. I had to pick him up." "Is he all right?" "I don't know. He keeps saying his stomach hurts, but there's no fever, no vomiting, nothing obvious. The nurse thinks it might be stress." "Stress? He's 6. Kids pick up on things." Sophia glanced at Matteo, still sleeping. "He knows I'm stressed, knows money is tight, knows I'm scared all the time, and his body's reacting to it." Eli was quiet for a moment. "Where do you live, Tua?" he asked. Sophia blinked. "What?" "Your address, what is it?" "Why?" "Just trust me, please." Sophia rattled off the address, feeling strange about it. She barely knew this man. They'd had lunch twice, and now she was giving him her home address. "Okay," Eli said. "I'll be there in an hour. Don't worry about dinner. I've got it covered." "What? No, you don't have to." "I want to. Let me help." He hung up before she could argue. Sophia sat there staring at her phone, wondering what just happened. 50 minutes later, there was a knock at her door. Sophia checked the peephole. Eli stood in the hallway, holding 2 paper bags and looking slightly uncertain. She opened the door. "Hi," he said. "Hi. I brought soup and crackers and ginger ale. Figured bland food was probably a safe bet." He held up the second bag. "Also got you dinner. Nothing fancy, just Chinese from the place on the corner." Sophia didn't move. She couldn't, because nobody did this. Nobody showed up with soup and dinner and genuine concern for people they barely knew. "Can I come in?" Eli asked gently. "Yeah, sorry. Yes." She stepped aside. Eli walked into her tiny apartment, taking in the cramped space without judgment. His eyes landed on Matteo, asleep on the couch. "That's Matteo?" "Yeah." "He looks like you." Sophia smiled despite everything. "Poor kid." Eli set the bags on the small kitchen counter. "How's he doing?" "Sleeping, finally. He was pretty upset earlier." "Have you eaten?" "Not yet." "Then sit. I'll handle this." Before Sophia could protest, Eli was unpacking containers, soup into a bowl, warming it in the microwave, crackers on a plate. Ginger ale poured into a glass. He moved around her kitchen like he belonged there, like this was normal. "You really didn't have to do this," Sophia said. I know. I don't even know your last name. Morse. Eli Morse. The microwave beeped. Eli pulled out the soup and carried it to the couch, kneeling beside Mateo. Hey, buddy, you awake? Mateo's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Eli with confusion and a hint of fear. It's okay, Sophia said quickly. This is Eli. He's a friend from work. Mateo's gaze shifted to the soup. I don't feel good. I know, but I brought you soup. Think you could try a little? Mateo sat up slowly. Eli handed him the bowl, and Sophia watched her son take a tiny sip, then another. Good? Eli asked. Mateo nodded. How about some ginger ale? That'll help settle your stomach. While Mateo drank, Eli sat on the floor, keeping his voice low and calm. He asked simple questions. What grade are you in? What's your favorite subject? Do you like dinosaurs? And slowly Mateo started to relax. Sophia watched from the kitchen, her chest tight with emotion she couldn't name. This man, this janitor she'd known for barely a week, was sitting on her floor talking to her son like it mattered. Like they mattered. Your mom tells me you're pretty smart, Eli said. Mateo shrugged. I guess. What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. Maybe a teacher or a scientist. Those are both good choices, important jobs. What do you do? I clean buildings, make sure everything works right. Mateo thought about this. Is it fun? Sometimes. I get to meet interesting people, like your mom. Sophia felt her face heat. Mateo finished the soup and handed the bowl back to Eli. Thank you. You're welcome, buddy. Now why don't you rest a little more while I talk to your mom? Mateo lay back down, pulling the blanket up. Within minutes, he was asleep again. Eli stood and walked back to the kitchen where Sophia was still standing, frozen. He seems like a great kid, Eli said quietly. He is. You're doing a good job with him. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. Most days I feel like I'm failing. You're not. You don't know that. You barely know me. Eli looked at her. Really looked at her. And Sophia saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. I know you work 2 jobs worth of effort for barely any recognition. I know you share your lunch even when you don't have enough. I know you're raising a smart, kind kid all by yourself. I know you're drowning and still somehow managing to keep him above water. He paused. That's not failing. That's heroic. Sophia's vision blurred. I'm not a hero. I'm just trying to survive. Same thing sometimes. They stood there in her tiny kitchen, and Sophia felt something shift. Something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe. Or the beginning of trust. Thank you for coming, she said. For the soup. For everything. Can I ask you something? Yeah. If I gave you my number, my real number, not the work directory, would you use it? If Mateo gets sick again, or you need help, or you just need someone to talk to. Sophia hesitated. Why are you being so nice to me? Eli smiled, and it was sad around the edges. Because someone should be. And because I know what it's like to do this alone. After my wife died, I was a wreck. Single dad trying to keep a business running, barely holding it together. People helped me, showed up when I needed it. I'm just paying it forward. I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to. He pulled out his phone and showed her his contact info. Sophia added it to her own phone, her hands shaking slightly. Call me if you need anything, Eli said. I mean it. Anything. After he left, Sophia sat on the couch beside Mateo and cried. Quiet tears that she'd been holding back for months. Someone had shown up. Someone had cared. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe she wasn't completely alone. Ethan drove home through evening traffic, thinking about Mateo's wide eyes and Sophia's cramped apartment, and the way she'd looked at him when he offered his number. Like she couldn't quite believe it was real. He'd crossed a line today. Multiple lines, probably. Getting personally involved with an employee. Going to her home. Meeting her kid. Patricia would have a stroke if she knew, but Ethan couldn't bring himself to care. He'd spent 2 weeks pretending to be someone else, seeing the company through different eyes, learning what it actually felt like to be at the bottom of the ladder he'd built. And somewhere in that process, he'd remembered something he'd lost after Caroline died. He'd remembered what it felt like to connect with people, to care about someone else's pain, to show up, not because it served him, but because it was the right thing to do. He pulled into his driveway and sat there for a moment, staring at his house. Tomorrow he'd have to go back to being Ethan Cross, CEO. Deal with the fallout from Martin's termination. Field calls from angry board members. Navigate the media circus. But tonight, he'd been Eli Morse. Maintenance worker, single dad, friend to someone who needed one. And that felt more real than anything he'd done in years. Inside, Emma was waiting with another drawing. This one showed 3 stick figures, her, him, and a woman with dark hair. "Who's that?" Ethan asked, pointing to the woman. "I don't know yet," Emma said. "But you're going to meet her soon, I can tell." Ethan looked at his daughter, too perceptive for 7 years old, and wondered what she saw that he didn't. "Maybe I already did," he said quietly. Emma smiled like she knew a secret. "Then you should probably not mess it up, Daddy." "I'll do my best, sweetheart." That night, after Emma was asleep, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for today. You didn't have to do that, but I'm really glad you did. Mateo's feeling better. He likes you." Sophia Ethan stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, "I'm glad he's feeling better. And for what it's worth, I like him too. He's got a pretty amazing mom." The response came quickly. "Flattery will get you everywhere, Morse." Ethan smiled. "Good to know." He set the phone down and went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. His mind kept circling back to Sophia's apartment, to Mateo's quiet fear, to the reality of how his employees actually lived. The surveys had shown him numbers, statistics, abstract concepts of dissatisfaction. Today he'd seen the human cost, and tomorrow he was going to start fixing it, all of it, even if it meant tearing down everything he'd built and starting over, because the right thing was usually the hard thing. And he was done taking the easy road. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a chaos of meetings, damage control, and restructuring that left Ethan running on coffee and 4 hours of sleep. The board had called 3 emergency sessions. 2 major investors had threatened to pull out. The press was having a field day with headlines like "Billionaire CEO's Conscience Crisis" and "Cross Industries Too Little Too Late." Ethan sat through it all with the same calm determination, refusing to back down. He'd stopped going undercover. The janitor uniform stayed in his closet. There wasn't time anymore, and besides, the charade felt wrong now. He knew what he needed to know. The rest was action. Patricia had compiled a list of 43 formal complaints filed over the past 5 years that had been dismissed or minimized. Ethan read every single one, then called in each person who was still with the company. Some meetings lasted 10 minutes. Others lasted an hour. He listened, took notes, and promised change. Some people believed him. Most didn't. He couldn't blame them. On Wednesday afternoon, he was reviewing the new HR policy draft when his phone buzzed. Sophia's name lit up the screen. "Mateo has a soccer game Saturday morning. He asked if you wanted to come. No pressure, but he really liked you. S." Ethan stared at the message. He hadn't seen Sophia since that night at her apartment. They'd texted a few times, mostly her thanking him again and him deflecting. But he'd been careful to keep his distance. Getting more involved felt dangerous. Not because of company policy. He'd checked. There was nothing preventing a maintenance worker from being friends with someone from accounting. But because every time he thought about Sophia, he felt the weight of the lie between them growing heavier. She thought he was Eli Morse, a janitor, a regular guy living a regular life. She had no idea she was texting the CEO who'd fired her former boss and sent the company into upheaval. He should tell her. He knew he should tell her. But every time he tried to imagine that conversation, it ended badly. His finger hovered over the keyboard. Then he typed, "What time's the game?" The response came immediately. 10 a.m., Lincoln Park Field 3. Fair warning, his team is terrible. But he tries really hard. Ethan smiled despite himself. "I'll be there." On Thursday, Sophia started her second week with Sarah Chen's analytics team. The difference from working under Martin was staggering. Sarah actually explained things instead of just criticizing. She asked questions instead of making accusations. When Sophia stayed late to finish a report, Sarah noticed and thanked her. It felt like working in a different company entirely. "You settling in okay?" Janet asked during lunch. They'd started eating together in the cafeteria, both of them relieved to be out from under Martin's shadow. Yeah, Sarah's great. The work is actually interesting. Sophia poked at her salad. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. What do you mean? It's too good. I got transferred away from Martin right before he got fired. Now I'm on a team where people are actually decent. It feels like a setup. Janet shook her head. Sometimes good things just happen, Sophia. Not to me, they don't. Then maybe it's time they started. Sophia wanted to believe that. She really did. But life had taught her to be skeptical of good fortune. It usually came with a price tag she couldn't afford. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother. Mateo's doctor appointment is Tuesday. I can watch him after if you need to get back to work. Sophia had almost forgotten about the appointment. Almost. The anxiety about it had been sitting in her stomach like a stone for weeks. Thanks, Mama. I'll let you know. She put the phone away and tried to focus on her lunch, but the worry wouldn't leave. What if something was actually wrong with Mateo? What if it wasn't just stress? What if it was something serious and she couldn't afford to fix it? Her insurance through Cross Industries was decent, but there were still copays, deductibles, things that added up fast when you were living paycheck to paycheck. You okay? Janet asked. Just thinking about my son. He's been having stomach issues. Kids are resilient. He'll be fine. Sophia nodded and didn't mention that resilience was what you said when you couldn't afford proper medical care. Friday evening, Ethan left work early to pick up Emma from school. She came running out with paint on her shirt and a huge smile. We made self-portraits today. I can see that. Ethan gestured at the paint. Is that part of yours? It's abstract, Daddy. Mrs. Palmer says I have a unique artistic vision. I bet you do, sweetheart. On the drive home, Emma chattered about her day, about how Madison had gotten in trouble for talking, about how Tyler hadn't eaten glue this week, about her friend Lucas, who was having a birthday party next month. Normal kid stuff, the kind of everyday details that made Ethan's chest ache with gratitude. He'd almost lost this after Caroline died, almost let grief swallow him whole. Work had been his escape then, throwing himself into building the company because it was easier than dealing with the emptiness at home. Somewhere in that process, he'd stopped seeing people as people. They'd become assets, resources, numbers on a spreadsheet. Martin had been right about that, even if he'd been wrong about everything else. Daddy, you're doing that thing again. Ethan glanced at Emma in the rearview mirror. What thing? The thinking too hard thing. Your face gets all scrunchy. Sorry, just got a lot on my mind. Is it work stuff? Some of it. Is some of it about the lady from my drawing? Ethan almost swerved. What? The one with dark hair. You said you met her. Emma kicked her feet against her car seat. Are you going to see her again? Actually, yeah, she has a son about your age. He has a soccer game tomorrow. I said I'd go watch. Emma's eyes went wide. Can I come? I don't know if that's a good idea. Please? I never get to do anything fun on Saturdays, and I like soccer, and I want to meet her. Ethan thought about it. Bringing Emma meant this was more than just helping out a friend. It meant crossing another line, making this more real. But maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe he was tired of lines. Okay, he said, but you have to be on your best behavior. I'm always on my best behavior. Emma. Okay, fine. I'll be extra good. Saturday morning dawned clear and cool. Ethan dressed in jeans and a sweater, feeling strange in casual clothes. He couldn't remember the last time he'd gone somewhere on a weekend that wasn't work-related. Emma wore her favorite purple jacket and sneakers that lit up when she walked. She bounced the entire drive to Lincoln Park, asking questions about Mateo and his mom and whether there would be snacks. I don't know if there are snacks. There's always snacks at sports things, Daddy. That's like a rule. They arrived at the field 10 minutes early. A handful of parents were already setting up folding chairs on the sidelines. Kids in oversized jerseys ran drills that looked more like organized chaos. Ethan scanned the crowd and spotted Sophia standing near the bench, holding a water bottle and looking anxious. Mateo was on the field, small even among 6-year-olds, concentrating hard on kicking the ball toward the goal. Is that them? Emma whispered. Yeah. She's pretty. Emma. What? She is. They walked over. Sophia saw them coming and her face lit up. You came. Then she noticed Emma. And you brought reinforcements. This is my daughter, Emma. She insisted on coming. Emma stuck out her hand very formally. Nice to meet you, Ms. Reyes. Sophia shook her hand, trying not to smile. You can call me Sophia, and it's nice to meet you too, Emma. Your son is number 7, right? The one with the really good focus face? That's him. He looks fast. He tries really hard. The winning part doesn't always work out. The game started a few minutes later. Emma was right about the snacks. Someone's mom had brought orange slices and juice boxes. The team was also, as Sophia had warned, terrible. But Matteo ran his heart out, chasing the ball with determination even when the other team scored. Again and again. Come on, Matteo, Emma shouted from the sidelines. You've got this. Sophia glanced at Ethan. She's sweet. She's something. They watched in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The game was tied 3-3, which felt like a miracle given how the first half had gone. How's the new team? Ethan asked. Good. Really good, actually. Sarah's amazing. The work is interesting. I actually look forward to going in. That's great. It's strange, honestly. I keep waiting for it to fall apart. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. Things don't usually work out this well for me. Ethan wanted to tell her she deserved every good thing, that she'd earned it through sheer determination and grace under impossible circumstances, that watching her keep going despite everything had reminded him what real strength looked like. But he couldn't say any of that without revealing too much. So instead he said, Maybe your luck is changing. Maybe. She didn't sound convinced. On the field, Matteo got control of the ball. He dribbled toward the goal, focused and determined. A kid from the other team tried to steal it. Matteo dodged, kicked, and sent the ball sailing past the goalie. The small crowd erupted. Sophia jumped up screaming. Emma was hopping up and down. Matteo stood there looking shocked, then broke into the biggest smile Ethan had ever seen. He scored! Sophia grabbed Ethan's arm without thinking. He actually scored. That was a great shot. He's been trying all season, and this is his first goal. She had tears in her eyes. Happy ones. I need to... Excuse me. She ran onto the field the second the whistle blew, scooping Matteo up and spinning him around. He was laughing, face flushed with pride and joy. Emma tugged on Ethan's sleeve. That was really cool. Yeah, it was. I like them, Daddy. Can we keep them? Ethan looked down at his daughter, who was watching Sophia and Matteo with an expression that reminded him painfully of Caroline. That same open-hearted kindness that saw people and wanted to help. It's not that simple, sweetheart. Why not? You like her. She likes you. They need help, and we can help. Seems simple to me. There are things you don't understand. Then explain them. How did he explain to a 7-year-old that he'd built his friendship with Sophia on a lie? That every moment they spent together he was pretending to be someone he wasn't? That when she found out the truth, she'd probably never speak to him again? I will, he said. When you're older. Adults always say that, because it's usually true. After the game, they all went out for ice cream. Emma and Matteo bonded over their shared love of chocolate chip. Sophia tried to pay, Ethan insisted, and they compromised by agreeing to split it. They sat outside the shop, kids at one table, adults at another. Thank you for coming, Sophia said. It meant a lot to Matteo, and to me. I'm glad we could make it. Emma's great, by the way. You're doing a good job with her. Most days I'm just trying not to screw up too badly. Sophia laughed. That's parenting in a nutshell, isn't it? They watched the kids. Emma was showing Matteo something on her phone, some game or video that had them both giggling. Can I ask you something? Sophia said quietly. Sure. Why are you being so nice to us? And don't say you're just paying it forward. I get that part. But this feels like more. Ethan chose his words carefully. Because you remind me of what matters. Because watching you fight for your son reminds me why I fight for mine. Because you're a good person dealing with a bad situation, and someone should help you carry the weight. Sophia looked at him for a long moment. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in years. I mean it. I know. That's what scares me. Why? Because nothing this good ever lasts. In my experience, the universe doesn't let you have nice things for long. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. Matteo's father said all the right things too, promised he'd be there, that we'd figure it out together. Then he left. The second things got hard. I'm not him. I know, I think I know, but I've been wrong before. Ethan wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, wanted to promise he wouldn't leave, wouldn't hurt her, wouldn't let her down. But he couldn't make those promises, because when she found out who he really was, she might be the one who left. They finished their ice cream and walked back to the parking lot. Emma and Matteo had exchanged phone numbers, which meant they'd probably be texting constantly. Same time next week? Sophia asked. Matteo has another game. We'll be there. On the drive home, Emma was unusually quiet. What are you thinking about? Ethan asked. You should tell her. Tell her what? Who you are. What you do. All of it. Emma met his eyes in the mirror. She likes you, but she likes Eli, not the CEO version. You need to tell her before it gets worse. Ethan gripped the steering wheel. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, Daddy. You just don't always listen. She was right. Of course she was right. But that didn't make it easier. Tuesday morning, Sophia took a half-day off for Matteo's doctor appointment. She'd been anxious about it all week, barely sleeping the night before. The doctor was kind, thorough. He examined Matteo, asked questions, ran some basic tests. I don't see anything physically wrong, he said finally. No infections, no digestive issues, nothing concerning, which means this is likely anxiety-related. Sophia had expected this. It didn't make hearing it any easier. What do I do? She asked. Address the sources of stress in his environment. Counseling might help. There are some good pediatric therapists in the area. He handed her a referral sheet. In the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. Routine, stability, reassurance. He's got a good mom. That counts for a lot. Outside, Sophia looked at the referral sheet. The therapist listed probably cost $100 an hour, maybe more. Her insurance might cover some of it. Maybe. Her phone buzzed. Text from Eli. How'd the appointment go? Sophia stared at the message. They'd been texting more over the past few days. Nothing heavy, just small talk. Funny observations about work. Emma had sent Matteo 3 videos of her cat. It felt normal, comfortable, dangerous. She typed back, Doctor says it's anxiety. Recommended therapy. The response came quickly. That's good news, right? Nothing physically wrong? Yeah, but therapy is expensive. There are sliding scale clinics. I can send you some names if you want. Sophia felt something crack in her chest. He was always doing this. Always helping. Always showing up. And she was falling for him. Actually falling. Which terrified her more than anything. That would be great. Thank you. That night, Ethan sat in his home office, staring at the list of pediatric therapists Patricia had compiled for him. He'd asked her to find the best ones in the city, ones that offered sliding scale payments or worked with insurance. He'd forwarded the list to Sophia an hour ago. Now he was trying to figure out how to tell her the truth. He'd drafted the text message 17 times. Each version sounded worse than the last. Hey, so I'm actually not a janitor. I'm the CEO. Surprise? There's something I need to tell you about who I really am. I've been lying to you about my job and my name and basically everything. None of it worked because there was no good way to say everything you think you know about me is a lie. His phone rang. Patricia. We have a problem, she said without preamble. What now? Someone leaked details about the Martin termination to the press. They're running a story tomorrow about the investigation, the complaints, all of it. Ethan closed his eyes. How bad? Bad enough. They're framing it as us covering up systemic abuse, painting you as either complicit or incompetent. Which is fair. Ethan, it is, Patricia. I didn't know what was happening in my own company. That's on me. The board wants a statement. Then we'll give them one. The truth. We screwed up. We're fixing it. Anyone who doesn't like it can leave. Patricia was quiet for a moment. You've really changed. Yeah, I have. After he hung up, Ethan pulled up his text thread with Sophia. She'd sent a thumbs up to the therapist list. Then another message. Matteo asked if you and Emma want to come over for dinner this week. I told him I'd ask. No pressure, obviously. Ethan stared at the message. Dinner meant more time together, more moments of connection, more lies piling up between them. But it also meant seeing Sophia smile. watching Emma and Matteo become friends, feeling like part of something real. He typed back before he could overthink it. We'd love to. When works for you? The response was almost instant. Thursday? Fair warning, I'm not a great cook, but I make a decent spaghetti. Thursday's perfect, and I like spaghetti. He set the phone down and put his head in his hands. He was in so deep now. Too deep to back out without destroying everything. But Emma was right. He had to tell Sophia the truth. He just had no idea how. Thursday came too fast. Ethan spent the day putting out fires at work, fielding calls from angry investors, and trying not to think about the evening ahead. At 5, he left the office and picked up Emma from Mrs. Chen's house. Are we bringing anything? Emma asked. Wine for Sophia, juice boxes for Matteo. You're nervous. I'm not nervous. You're doing the finger-tapping thing. You only do that when you're nervous. Ethan looked down. His fingers were indeed tapping against the steering wheel. Okay, maybe I'm a little nervous. Why? You like her. She likes you. Matteo and I are already friends. This should be easy. Things are complicated, Em. Only because you're making them complicated. They arrived at Sophia's apartment at 6:30. Ethan carried the wine. Emma carried the juice boxes and a bouquet of flowers she'd insisted on buying. Sophia answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back, looking beautiful and stressed. Hi, come in. Sorry, the place is a mess. It's not a mess, Ethan said, stepping inside. It wasn't. The apartment was small and cramped, but clean and lived in. Crayon drawings covered the refrigerator. Books were stacked on every available surface. It smelled like garlic and tomato sauce and home. Emma immediately went to find Matteo. Ethan followed Sophia to the kitchen. Can I help with anything? You can open the wine. I'm going to need it. She gestured at the stove where sauce was bubbling. I'm a little behind schedule. Matteo couldn't find his homework, and then I burned the garlic bread. And Sophia, Ethan touched her arm. Breathe. It's just dinner with friends. She stopped, meeting his eyes. Yeah, okay. Just dinner. But they both knew it wasn't just dinner. This was something else. Something more. Something that would fall apart the moment she knew the truth. They ate dinner at the small table wedged between the kitchen and living room, knees bumping underneath, passing garlic bread that was only slightly burned. Emma and Matteo talked non-stop about school and their favorite YouTube channels, and whether dinosaurs could beat dragons in a fight. Sophia laughed more than Ethan had ever seen, her whole face transforming. He watched her across the table and felt something settle in his chest. Something that felt like peace, or maybe just the absence of the constant noise that had filled his head for years. This was what he'd been missing. Not the expensive restaurants or the networking dinners or the carefully curated social events where everyone performed their success. Just this. Real people, real conversation, real connection. And he was about to destroy it with the truth. After dinner, the kids begged to watch a movie. Sophia set them up in the living room with blankets while Ethan helped clear the table. You don't have to do that, Sophia said, taking plates from him. I want to. They worked in silence for a few minutes, falling into an easy rhythm. Sophia washed, Ethan dried. The domesticity of it felt natural in a way that scared him. Can I ask you something? Sophia said quietly, not looking at him. Yeah. Why maintenance? I mean, you're clearly educated. You talk like someone who reads a lot. You know about business and finance. You could probably do more than clean floors. Ethan's hand stilled on the dish towel. This was it. The opening he'd been waiting for. Tell her. Just tell her the truth. It's temporary, he said instead, hating himself. I'm between things, figuring out what comes next. What did you do before? The lie sat on his tongue, ready. Something vague about consulting or middle management, something that wouldn't raise questions. But he couldn't do it anymore. Sophia! Mama! Matteo called from the living room. Emma says we can have popcorn if you say yes. The moment broke. Sophia smiled apologetically and went to deal with the popcorn request. Ethan stood in the kitchen, gripping the dish towel, feeling like a coward. Later, after the movie ended and Emma was starting to yawn, Ethan said they should go. Thank you for dinner, he said at the door. Thank you for coming, and for helping clean up, and for... Sophia gestured vaguely. Everything, I guess. Emma hugged Matteo goodbye, making him promise to text her about tomorrow's spelling test. Then she went to wait by the car, giving the adults a moment alone. She's really special, Sophia said, watching Emma through the window. So is Matteo. Yeah, he is. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. Eli, can I ask you something else? Are we? She stopped, struggling with the words. What is this? What are we doing? Ethan's heart hammered. What do you want this to be? I don't know. I just know that I haven't felt this comfortable with someone in years. That Matteo lights up when he talks about you and Emma. That when my phone buzzes and it's a text from you, my whole day gets better. She looked down. But I'm also terrified. Because every time I trust someone, they leave. And I can't. I have Matteo to think about. I can't let him get attached to someone who's going to disappear. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. I mean it, Sophia. She met his eyes then, and he saw all the fear and hope tangled up together. There's something I need to tell you, Ethan said. Something important. But not here. Not now. Can I take you to lunch tomorrow? Just us. We need to talk. Sophia's expression shifted. That sounds ominous. It's not bad, I promise. It's just complicated. And you deserve to hear it properly. She studied him for a long moment. Okay. Tomorrow. Lunch. On the drive home, Emma was quiet until they were almost there. You were going to tell her, she said. Yeah. But you didn't. I will tomorrow. You better, Daddy, because she really likes you, and when people really like you and you lie to them, it hurts worse. Ethan gripped the steering wheel. I know, sweetheart. Do you think she'll forgive you? I don't know. Emma was quiet again. Then, I think she will. Because she's nice, and because you're trying to be better. People forgive people who try. Ethan hoped his daughter was right, but he wasn't counting on it. Friday morning, Ethan canceled his afternoon meetings and told Patricia he'd be out of the office. Everything okay? She asked. I'm telling someone the truth about the undercover work, someone who deserves to know. Patricia's eyebrows rose. The accountant? Sophia Reyes? How did you... I pay attention, Ethan. You transferred her away from Martin, asked me to find therapist referrals. You're not exactly subtle. She paused. Does she know who you are? Not yet. And you think this is going to go well? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Patricia shook her head. For what it's worth, I hope it works out. You've been different since you started this whole thing. More present, more human. If she's part of that, you should fight for it. Ethan met Sophia at a quiet restaurant on the edge of the city, somewhere they wouldn't run into anyone from Cross Industries. Somewhere he could have this conversation without an audience. She was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking nervous. Hi, she said. Hi. They ordered, made small talk about the weather and the kids. Sophia kept glancing at him, trying to read his expression. When the food arrived, neither of them ate. Okay, Sophia said finally. Whatever you need to tell me, just say it. You're scaring me. Ethan took a breath. My name isn't Eli Morse. It's Ethan Cross. Sophia blinked. What? Ethan Cross. I'm the CEO of Cross Industries. I have been for 15 years. The color drained from her face. That's not funny. It's not a joke. You're a janitor. I've seen you clean floors. That was part of an undercover operation. We had terrible employee survey results. I wanted to understand what was really happening in the company, so I went undercover as maintenance for a week. Sophia pushed back from the table. This isn't real. This is some kind of prank. I wish it was. Ethan pulled out his phone, showing her his contact card. His real one. CEO, Cross Industries. Picture and everything. She stared at it, her hands shaking. The morning we met, Ethan continued, when you dropped your son's things. That was my third day undercover. I was trying to understand the disconnect between management and workers. Then I met you, and I saw what Martin was doing, how he treated people, how the whole system was broken. You fired Martin. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yeah. You transferred me. I couldn't stand watching him destroy you, so yes, I intervened. Sophia stood up. I need to leave. Sophia, please. You lied to me for weeks. You came to my apartment, met my son. Let me... Her voice broke. I told you things. personal things. I trusted you. Everything I felt was real. Everything I said about caring about you and Matteo, that was true. But you lied about who you were. You're a billionaire CEO playing dress-up, slumming it with the poor people to see how the other half lives. And She grabbed her purse, her eyes shining with tears. I actually thought you understood. Thought you knew what it was like to struggle. But this was all just some experiment to you. No, Sophia, that's not... But she was already walking away. Ethan sat there watching her leave, feeling like he'd been gutted. The waiter came by looking concerned. Is everything all right, sir? No, Ethan said quietly. Everything is very much not all right. He paid the check and sat there for another 20 minutes, staring at his untouched food, trying to figure out how to fix this. His phone buzzed. Text from Emma, sent from Mrs. Chen's phone. Did you tell her? Yes. Did she forgive you? No. Are you going to fix it? Ethan stared at the message. Was he going to fix it? Could he fix it? He typed back, I'm going to try. Sophia made it 3 blocks before she had to stop, leaning against a building, trying to breathe through the tears. He'd lied. The one person she'd started to trust, the one person who'd made her feel like maybe things could be okay, had been lying the entire time. Not Eli Morse, maintenance worker, single dad struggling just like her. Ethan Cross. Billionaire. The man who owned the company, who could have helped her with a word but instead watched her drown under Martin's abuse for weeks before deciding to intervene. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She looked. Unknown number. This is Patricia Wong, head of HR at Cross Industries. Mr. Cross gave me your number in case of emergency. He's very concerned and asked me to make sure you're okay. Sophia almost threw her phone. Even now, even after she'd walked away, he was trying to manage the situation, sending his HR director to check on her like she was a problem to be solved. She texted back, Tell Mr. Cross I'm fine, and tell him not to contact me again. She turned off her phone and went to pick up Matteo early from school. Why are you sad, Mama? Matteo asked on the bus ride home. Just a bad day, baby. Did something happen with Eli? Sophia's throat tightened. His name isn't Eli, and yeah, something happened. Are we still friends with him and Emma? I don't know, Maddie. Matteo was quiet for a moment. Then, I hope we are. I like them. I know, baby, I know. That weekend was brutal. Matteo kept asking about Emma. Sophia kept avoiding her phone, which kept buzzing with messages she wouldn't read. On Sunday, her mother came over and found her crying in the kitchen. Mija, what happened? Sophia told her everything. The undercover CEO. The lies. The betrayal. Her mother listened, then sighed. Men are idiots. That's it? That's your advice? No, my advice is that you need to figure out if he lied to hurt you or if he lied because he's an idiot who didn't know how to tell the truth. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Her mother took Sophia's hands. You've been hurt before. By Matteo's father. By life. You've built walls to protect yourself. But this man, even if he lied, he showed up. He helped when you needed it. He cared about your son. Those things were real, weren't they? Sophia nodded, unable to speak. Then maybe he deserves a chance to explain. Really explain. Not in a restaurant where you can run away, but somewhere you can hear him. I don't know if I can. You're stronger than you think, Mija. You always have been. Monday morning, Sophia went to work with her walls firmly back in place. She avoided the lobby, took the stairs instead of the elevator, kept her head down. At lunch, Janet found her in the break room. You okay? You've been weird all morning. I'm fine. You're not fine. What happened? Sophia looked at Janet, this woman who'd survived years of Martin's abuse and still showed up every day with kindness and humor. If you found out someone you trusted had lied to you, completely lied about who they were, would you forgive them? Janet thought about it. Depends. Why did they lie? Because they were trying to fix something, but they should have told the truth sooner. Did the lying hurt people? It hurt me. Then they should apologize, really apologize, and then you decide if you believe them. Janet smiled sadly. But Sophia, everyone lies sometimes. The question is whether they're trying to protect themselves or protect you. Figure out which one it was, and you'll know what to do. That afternoon, Sophia finally turned on her phone. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, most from Ethan, a few from a number she didn't recognize. She started with the unknown number. Hi, Sophia. This is Emma. My dad gave me your number. He's really sad. He knows he messed up. He's not eating, and he keeps staring at his phone, and Mrs. Chen says he's being pathetic. I don't know what happened, but I think you should talk to him. Please? Emma. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. The messages from Ethan were variations on the same theme. Apologies, explanations, request to talk. The last one, sent that morning, was different. I know you don't want to hear from me, I understand why, but I need you to know that everything I felt was real. The person I was with you, that was the real me. Not the CEO in the expensive suit, the guy who helped you pick up crayons and brought soup to your son and fell for you without meaning to. That was real. I'm sorry I lied about my name and my job, but I never lied about how I felt. I never lied about caring about you and Mateo. And if you give me a chance, I'll spend however long it takes proving that to you. Ethan. Sophia read it 3 times. Then she did something impulsive. She went to the 30th floor. The executive level was intimidating in a way the 12th floor never was. Expensive art on the walls, thick carpet, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the entire city. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I need to see Ethan Cross. Do you have an appointment? No, but tell him Sophia Reyes is here. He'll see me. The receptionist made a call. 30 seconds later, she nodded toward the hallway. His office is the last door on the right. Sophia walked down the hallway, her heart pounding. Through the glass walls, she could see him, sitting at his desk, looking exhausted and defeated in a way that made her chest ache. She knocked. He looked up. Their eyes met. Ethan stood, nearly knocking over his chair. Sophia. Can we talk? Yes, of course. He gestured to the sitting area by the window. Please. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped in her lap. Ethan sat across from her, maintaining distance. I read your messages, Sophia said. I meant every word. I believe you. That's what makes this so hard. She looked up at him. I understand why you went undercover. I even understand why you didn't tell me at first. But Ethan, you came to my apartment. You met my son. You let me fall for you while lying about who you were. That's what I can't get past. I know, and I'm sorry. I was going to tell you that night at dinner. I tried to tell you at the restaurant. I kept putting it off because I was afraid of exactly this. Losing you. You should have been more afraid of me finding out you'd been lying. You're right. They sat in silence for a moment. Why did you really go undercover? Sophia asked. The truth. Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Because I'd lost touch with what I built. After my wife died, work became everything, the only thing I could control. I pushed harder, grew faster, made more money. And somewhere in that, I forgot that companies are made of people. I forgot to care about anything except the bottom line. He met her eyes. Then I read those surveys and realized I'd created exactly the kind of toxic environment I'd sworn I'd never build. So I went undercover to see how bad it was. And? It was worse than I thought. Martin was just the most visible problem. The whole culture was broken. People were afraid, burned out, staying because they had no choice, not because they wanted to be there. And you decided to fix it. I'm trying to. We've implemented new policies, better parental leave, actual enforcement of harassment complaints, anonymous reporting systems. It's not perfect yet, but it's better. Sophia nodded slowly. Why didn't you just tell me all this when we first met? Because I wanted to observe without influencing behavior. If people knew the CEO was watching, they'd act differently. I needed to see the truth. He paused. But then I met you, and suddenly it wasn't about the experiment anymore. It was about you. What about me? You reminded me what it meant to be human, to struggle, to keep going even when everything's falling apart. You shared your lunch with a janitor you barely knew. You treated everyone with kindness even though you were drowning. You were the best thing I'd seen in that building, and I wanted to know you, not as the CEO, just as a person. So you lied. So I lied. Ethan's voice was heavy with regret. And I hurt you. And I'm sorrier about that than I've been about anything in a long time. Sophia stood, walking to the window. The city spread out below, millions of people living millions of lives. From up here, they all look so small. I grew up poor, she said quietly, really poor. My mom worked 3 jobs. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with my aunt and her kids. I wore secondhand clothes and ate free school lunch and knew that every opportunity I got I had to fight for because nobody was going to hand me anything. She turned to face him. I worked my way through college, raised Mateo alone, clawed my way into this job, and every single day I felt like I was one mistake away from losing everything. People like Martin looked at me and saw someone disposable, someone who didn't matter. You matter, Ethan said quietly. To who? To you? The billionaire who decided I was an interesting case study? That's not fair, isn't it? You watched me struggle under Martin for weeks before doing anything. You could have helped sooner, but you didn't. You're right. I should have intervened immediately, but I was still gathering evidence, still building the case to fire him properly. If I'd acted too quickly, he could have sued and the whole thing would have gotten buried. Ethan stood, moving closer. But Sophia, the transfer had nothing to do with the investigation timeline. I moved you because I couldn't stand watching him hurt you one more day. That was personal. That was me, caring about you specifically. As the CEO, as both, as all of me. He stopped a few feet away. I'm not good at this, at being vulnerable, at letting people in. After Caroline died, I shut down, focused on Emma and work and nothing else. Then I met you, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to care about someone, to want to be around them, to want to be better because of them. Sophia felt tears threatening again. You lied to me, Ethan. I did, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I never lied about my feelings. Every moment we spent together, every conversation, every text message, that was real. The person I was with you, that's who I want to be. Not the CEO who forgot his humanity, the man who remembered it because of you. I don't know if I can trust you again. Then let me earn it back, however long it takes. I'll prove that I'm worth trusting. What if you can't? Then I'll have tried, and I'll know I did everything I could. He took a breath. But Sophia, I'm not giving up on this. On us. Not without a fight. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the exhaustion, the regret, the hope beneath all of it. She also saw the man who'd shown up at her apartment with soup, who'd watched Mateo score his first goal and cheered like it was the World Cup, who'd sent her therapist referrals and checked in when she needed it. The lie was real, but so was everything else. I need time, she said finally. Take all the time you need. And I need you to be honest about everything. No more secrets. I promise. And I need, she stopped, struggling. I need to know this isn't charity, that you don't see me as some project to fix or some way to ease your guilt about the company. Ethan closed the distance between them, stopping just short of touching her. You're not a project. You're not charity. You're someone who makes me want to be better, who reminds me what actually matters, who I think about first thing in the morning and last thing at night. His voice dropped. You're someone I'm falling in love with, even though I know I probably don't deserve that chance. Sophia's breath caught. I can't promise this will be easy, Ethan continued. I'm still learning how to balance everything, how to be a good CEO and a good father and a good partner. I'll probably screw up again, but I can promise that I'll never lie to you again, that I'll show up, that I'll fight for you and Mateo as hard as I fight for anything. Sophia felt something loosen in her chest. The walls she'd built, brick by careful brick, starting to crumble. Emma texted me, she said. Ethan's eyes widened. She did? Called you pathetic. That sounds like her. She also said you weren't eating. I wasn't particularly hungry. Sophia smiled despite herself. Mateo's been asking about you too, about Emma. He misses you both. Emma's been doing the same. I had to confiscate her phone because she was texting Mateo every 5 minutes. They stood there, the space between them charged with possibility. I'm scared, Sophia admitted. Me too. What if this doesn't work? What if it does? Sophia took a shaky breath. Then she closed the distance between them, reaching for his hand. Ethan laced his fingers through hers, the touch sending warmth through both of them. Slow, Sophia said. We do this slow. We rebuild trust. We figure out what this looks like with 2 kids and complicated lives and very different worlds. Slow works for me. And you introduce me to people as Sophia, not as the accountant, not as anything else. Just Sophia. Deal. And we tell the kids the truth. About everything. Agreed. Sophia squeezed his hand. Okay, then let's try this. Ethan pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. Sophia let herself lean into him, feeling safe for the first time in weeks. Thank you, he whispered into her hair. For what? For giving me another chance. For seeing past the lie to what was real. For being brave enough to try. Don't make me regret it. I won't, I promise. They stood there in his office, holding each other, while the city hummed below and the future stretched out ahead, uncertain but possible. That Saturday, they all met at the park after Mateo's soccer game. Emma had made a sign that said, Go Mateo, with glitter and markers. Mateo beamed when he saw it. The game was another disaster, but Mateo didn't seem to care. He was just happy to have his friends there. Afterward, they sat on the grass eating ice cream while the kids ran around the playground. So, Sophia said, how do we explain this to them? The truth, Ethan said, that I made a mistake, that I'm sorry, that we're working on it. They're going to have questions. Kids always have questions. They called Emma and Mateo over. The kids sat down, looking between the adults with identical suspicious expressions. We need to talk to you both about something, Sophia started. Are you getting married? Emma asked immediately. What? No, because that would be cool. Mateo and I already talked about it. We'd be good siblings. Mateo nodded seriously. I've always wanted a sister. Ethan and Sophia exchanged glances. We're not getting married, Ethan said. But we are. We're going to try being together, dating, spending time as a family. Okay, Emma said, what's the big deal? The big deal is that I need to apologize to both of you. Ethan looked at Mateo. When I first met your mom, I told her my name was Eli. That was a lie. My real name is Ethan, and I'm actually the CEO of the company where your mom works. I was pretending to be a janitor to learn about the company, but I should have told the truth sooner. I'm sorry for lying. Mateo thought about this. Why did you lie? Because I was trying to understand what it was really like to work there. But lying was wrong, and I hurt your mom's feelings. That was my fault. Did you apologize to her? Yes. Did she forgive you? We're working on it. Mateo looked at his mother. Did you forgive him, Mama? Sophia smiled. I'm trying to, baby. Okay. Mateo turned back to Ethan. Don't lie again. I won't. Promise? I promise. Emma had been quiet through all this. Now she spoke up. Are you happy, Daddy? The question caught Ethan off guard. What? Are you happy? Like actually happy? Because you've been sad for a really long time, since Mommy died. But lately, you've been different, better. Is that because of Sophia and Mateo? Ethan felt his throat tighten. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm happy, really happy. Good. Emma stood up and held out her hand to Mateo. Come on, let's go on the swings and let the adults do their boring talking thing. The kids ran off. Sophia and Ethan sat there watching them. That went better than expected, Sophia said. Kids are more forgiving than adults. Or they just want us to be happy. That too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sophia spoke. I think I'm falling for you too, just so you know. Ethan turned to her, his face breaking into a genuine smile. Yeah? Yeah, even though you're an idiot who lied to me, even though this is probably complicated and messy and going to be hard. I'm falling for you. I'll take it. Sophia leaned against him, and Ethan wrapped his arm around her shoulders. They watched their kids play, 2 single parents who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. The next few months weren't easy. There were awkward moments and difficult conversations. There were times when Sophia's fear of being hurt would flare up, and times when Ethan's guilt would eat at him. They had to navigate public scrutiny when word got out that the CEO was dating an employee. They had to figure out how to blend their families while giving the kids space to adjust. But they showed up. Every day they chose each other. They chose honesty over comfort. They chose to work through the hard parts instead of running from them. By the holidays, something had shifted. Emma and Matteo were inseparable, more like actual siblings than friends. Sophia had been promoted to senior analyst, a position she'd earned entirely on her own merit. Ethan had implemented sweeping changes at Cross Industries, turning it into the kind of workplace he'd originally envisioned. On Christmas Eve, they were all at Ethan's house. Sophia and her mother were in the kitchen making tamales, a family tradition. Emma and Matteo were decorating cookies with more frosting than any human should consume. Ethan was attempting to assemble a bike for Matteo while reading instructions that made no sense. "You're doing it wrong," Sophia's mother said, walking in with a dish towel. "I'm aware. Let me help." Together, they got the bike assembled. Ethan sat back, looking at the chaos around him. His house, once so quiet and empty, was full of noise and laughter and life. Sophia came in, flower in her hair, and sat down beside him. "You okay?" she asked. "More than okay." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you." "For what?" "For taking a chance on me, for trusting me again, for bringing all this into my life." Sophia looked at their kids, covered in cookie frosting and giggling. "We're pretty great, aren't we?" "The greatest." Later that night, after the kids were asleep and Sophia's mother had gone home, Sophia and Ethan stood on the back porch looking at the stars. "I've been thinking," Sophia said, "about what you said, about me reminding you what matters." "You do. The thing is, you did the same for me. You reminded me that not everyone leaves, that sometimes people show up, that it's okay to let people help you. We helped each other." "Yeah, we did." She turned to him. "I love you. I should probably say that. I love you, Ethan Cross, even though you're a billionaire CEO who sometimes forgets to eat lunch. Even though you lied to me and I'm still a little mad about it, I love you." Ethan felt something break open in his chest. "I love you too. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you love Matteo. I love that you shared your sandwich with the janitor. I love that you gave me another chance when I didn't deserve it." They kissed under the stars, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. Inside, Emma woke up and padded to the window. She saw them on the porch and smiled. Then she went back to bed, satisfied that her drawing from months ago had been prophetic after all. The next morning, Matteo scored another goal at his soccer game. This time, they were all there to see it. Emma screamed so loud she lost her voice. Sophia cried happy tears. Ethan felt his heart swell with pride for this kid who wasn't his by blood, but was becoming his in every way that mattered. After the game, they went for their traditional ice cream. While the kids debated toppings, Sophia's phone rang. She answered, stepping away from the table. When she came back, her face was pale. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "That was Matteo's therapist. She had a cancellation next week and wanted to know if we could take it. And I realized I don't have to panic about the cost anymore. My insurance is better. I'm making more money. I can actually afford to give him what he needs." She started crying, not sad tears, relief tears. Ethan pulled her close, letting her cry into his shoulder. "You did that," he whispered. "You fought for this. You earned this. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. You were already doing it. I just helped speed up the timeline." They stood there in the ice cream shop holding each other, while their kids watched with the casual acceptance of children who'd seen their parents be human and vulnerable and real. 6 months later, Ethan stood in front of the entire Cross Industries staff at the annual company meeting. He'd given these speeches before, always focusing on numbers and growth and shareholder value. This time was different. 3 years ago, I was lost, he said. I'd built a successful company, but I'd lost sight of why. I'd forgotten that businesses are made of people, that profit without purpose is hollow, that leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room, it's about making everyone else smarter. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Then I went undercover as a janitor. Some of you know this story. Most of you don't. I spent a week cleaning floors and emptying trash cans and listening, really listening. And what I heard broke my heart. I'd created a place where people were afraid, where hard work went unrecognized, where speaking up meant retaliation. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I'm not telling you this to make excuses. I'm telling you because you deserve to know that I see it now. I see what I did wrong, and I'm committed to doing better. We're committed to doing better. He outlined the changes they'd made, the new policies, the accountability measures, The commitment to creating a workplace where people actually wanted to be. But more than that, he continued, I want to thank someone who reminded me what it means to show up every day and fight for what matters. Who taught me that strength isn't about power, it's about perseverance. Who helped me remember that the best version of myself isn't the CEO in the expensive suit, it's the person who stops to help someone pick up crayons on a bad morning. In the audience, Sophia ducked her head, blushing. Janet nudged her, grinning. We're all works in progress, Ethan finished. All of us. Me included. But if we keep showing up, keep trying to be better, keep choosing people over profit, we'll build something worth being proud of. Together. The applause was thunderous. After the meeting, Sophia found him in his office. That was quite a speech. Too much? Perfect. She closed the door. Although you basically just told the entire company we're together. We are together. I know, but now everyone knows. Is that a problem? Sophia thought about it. 6 months ago, she would have panicked, worried about what people would think, whether they'd assume she was only successful because of who she was dating. But she'd earned her promotions, proven herself over and over, and anyone who doubted that could fight her. No, she said. It's not a problem. Ethan smiled and pulled her close. Good, because I'm done hiding. I want everyone to know that you're the person who changed my life. Dramatic. True. They stood there in his office in the building where they'd first met and kissed like they had all the time in the world. Because they did. Time to build something real. Time to be imperfect together. Time to show up, day after day, choosing each other and their kids and the messy, complicated, beautiful life they were creating. Outside, the city hummed. Somewhere, a janitor was mopping floors. Somewhere, a single parent was struggling to make ends meet. Somewhere, someone was on their knees picking up the scattered pieces of their life, hoping someone would stop to help. And in a world that often felt cold and indifferent, sometimes someone did. Sometimes that changed everything. Years later, on the day Ethan and Sophia got married in a small ceremony with just their families, Emma gave a toast. My dad was sad for a long time, she said. After my mom died, he forgot how to be happy. He forgot that life was about more than work. Then he met Sophia and Matteo, and he remembered. He remembered that the best things in life are the people who show up for you, who see you at your worst and love you anyway, who help you pick up your crayons when everything falls apart. She raised her glass, raised Bautier, to showing up, to second chances, to families that choose each other, and to my dad, who finally stopped being an idiot. Everyone laughed. Ethan wiped his eyes. Sophia squeezed his hand. Matteo, now 10 and already taller than Emma, leaned over and whispered to his mom, This is pretty cool, right? Yeah, baby, Sophia whispered back. This is pretty cool. And it was. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real. And true. And worth every hard moment it took to get there. The kind of life you build when you're brave enough to be honest. When you're willing to admit your mistakes. When you choose love over fear, even when it's terrifying. The kind of life that starts with picking up crayons on a Tuesday morning and ends with forever.